how the approach to prevention in Europe is a bit like driving a car. We have mirrors so we can see behind us. This equates to our past performance data in health and safety, our accident data, our ill health data. We can say that we have a dashboard in the car which tells us how we're driving at the moment. And in the OSH context, this is survey data we get from Europe's workplaces and workers. And then we look forward to the horizon. We look forward to the end of the road to see what's coming up on the road, what do we have to avoid, and how can we get there safely. So when we look at the statistics for Europe are still quite shocking. There are estimated 167,000 work-related deaths from accidents and disease in the European Union. The key things about this data is not so much the absolute number. The trend is good, the trend is down. But what is shocking is of that number, 85% of those work-related deaths are health issues. They're not caused by accidents or violence, they're caused by health, things like cancers and other work-attributable diseases. So what can we say about how we're doing at the moment now? What does our dashboard look like? Well, the agency carried out a survey and asked Europe's workplaces questions about how do they manage occupational health and why do they manage occupational safety and health. And the question about why people manage occupational safety and health was very interesting. The main reason people do this is to fulfill the legal obligation. Now, I'm a former labour inspector, so this comes as no surprise to me, but it makes clear that whatever other reasons exist for doing health and safety at work, we need a legal framework in which that can operate. Perhaps more interesting though, we turn the question around and we asked those enterprises who didn't manage health and safety at work, we said, why don't you do health and safety? Why are you not taking action to protect your workers? And of the options they considered, what came back was, the problem is, they said, we don't need to. We haven't got any problems. Now, we know from the accident data, the ill health data, there are these problems in Europe. So this suggests to us that there is a lack of awareness of health and safety, a lack of awareness about the hazards and risks in Europe's workplaces. And you can see on this graph that the smaller the enterprise, the less likely they consider there is a problem. This really suggests to us this is a key issue in health and safety, making people aware of the hazards and risks they face and making employers aware that this is the situation and they need to do something about it. We did some secondary analysis of our survey data, and by plotting the indicators of OSH performance, we see that there is a real issue in smaller enterprises. On this graph, the further to the right on the graph, the larger the enterprise. And you can see as we get to the left, the OSH performance really starts dropping off once you get lower than 100 employees in a workplace. So this really shows up for us, we need to be focusing on the small and the micro enterprises. This pattern is common across Europe, so it's not just an anomaly. When we look at the level of information on work risks, we do a regular opinion poll, and we asked a European population across all the states the question, do you consider yourself well informed about work risks? And we see quite a variation across Europe. My Irish colleague will be very happy to see that the Irish believe that they were the most who believed themselves fully informed. And I'm afraid at the other end, Macedonia, we got the smallest response, along with Turkey, Hungary, Romania, and Montenegro. So here, this is suggesting a real issue. We need to get people aware of the risks they face at work. And again, we see an interesting pattern. We also ask people, if you raised a problem at work, would these problems be addressed? And again, we're seeing a big variation across the states. In this case, the United Kingdom got the best scores, if you like, and Portugal, there was a great lack of confidence in problems in the workplace being addressed. So this means that we have to make managers, employers aware that they need to act when workers raise legitimate concerns. So what about the road ahead? What are we facing? Well, there are quite a few patterns we can see. One is that the rate of female employment is going up. More women are entering the workforce. This is not consistent across sectors. Women are still concentrated in some tasks, some jobs, some sectors. But we have to recognize that women's exposure to risks are different to men's, and this means we need different solutions, adapted solutions, to ensure that female workers are protected. Across Europe, we also have a workforce that is getting older. This aging workforce, again, means that we have to look carefully at how we protect people. An older worker learns differently, behaves differently, acts differently compared to a younger worker. So we have to look carefully at the demographics of the European workforce to make sure everyone is protected. And finally, we have the migrant workers coming to and from many states. And this is seen to continue even with the economic crisis. And migrant workers often face particular challenges. You have to ensure that a migrant worker can understand the instructions they are given to protect himself. But too often, migrant workers end up in what are called the 3D jobs: dirty, demanding, and dangerous. And these workers need to be particularly protected. We see that there are some of the old risks that still remain a problem. An example would be noise. We all know the problems of noise, but we have to see that noise is a problem not just in the traditional industries such as engineering, shipbuilding, construction, but it is also a problem even in education, in the live performance sector, and in other service sectors even. We have to recognize that the health problems we face across Europe is perhaps the challenge, this huge cost that comes from people being off work with musculoskeletal disorders and through work-related stress. And we see that what are termed combined factors is an issue. Increasingly, we're realizing that hazards and risks do not operate in isolation. We get combinations of effects, so that people who, for example, people who are suffering from work-related stress quite often have much greater prevalence of musculoskeletal disorders. There's a relationship here which we need to explore and find out why and look to prevent. And we have to look at the high-risk groups. I said that there are more women in the labour market, and these women may be vulnerable. We know that part-time workers are often vulnerable, and night shift workers are vulnerable. And we know that migrant workers are vulnerable. And then sometimes you get a sector or a group that comes all these together. Think about cleaning workers. So often across Europe, the cleaning workers are part-time, female, doing several jobs, often working at night, and are undertrained and exposed to risks and not in a position to develop. We see the work in Europe changing. We have new hazards, nanotechnologies. Nanotechnologies and nanoparticles which are so small we cannot even conceive how small they are. We have changing ways of work. We have mobile workers, part-time workers, teleworkers, people who work basically from their car. They don't come into the office, they don't work 9 to 5. We have new industry sectors. There is a great talk of green jobs. This means new jobs in wind energy production, for example, all the way through to waste recycling. These jobs may be environmental, but they may not be safe. And the days of old-fashioned careers where we started with one enterprise when we were 18 and stayed in there till we retired, this is gone. This doesn't exist in Europe anymore. We have a flexible career, and we have to see how we can deal with this. A simple concern would be, for example, tracking somebody's occupational health data. We have to make sure that that data is available for that worker and all that worker's employers throughout his career. And as we look to keep people in work for longer, we have to look how to manage chronic health issues. If you have a worker with diabetes, for example, how do we manage his health in the workplace so that they stay healthy and productive in work? So if we can summarize here, we've got a big change in Europe about how we work and who is working. We know that there is no single solution. There is no recipe book you can pull off a shelf and put into another location. There are many solutions and they have to be adapted to the particular situation. We need joined up approach where societal, financial, legal measures are together and a cross-policy approach. What we want to achieve in future, we want fewer workers killed, fewer workers injured, fewer workers made ill through work. We want to save businesses business. We want to reduce the direct costs and indirect costs businesses sustain because of accidents in health. The direct costs may be obvious, increased insurance costs. The indirect costs of recruitment, of replacing staff who have been lost through ill health. These are often hidden, but they are still big costs. We want good health and safety performance to enhance business reputation and make industries and sectors more attractive. One of the reasons the construction industry in Europe works with us is they recognize that they have to be attractive to potential workers. And we want to reduce costs to the state. The state carries the burden of social insurance and social security costs, and states can no longer afford these costs at the level they are at. So we need new solutions, joining together the traditional engineering and scientific disciplines with occupational health, linking public health to occupational health, looking at measures such as well-being at work and new tools to implement solutions. The agency offers a risk assessment tool that can be adapted to micro-enterprises, for example. So, in terms of strategy, the EU strategy that was currently in place has now finished and is being evaluated. And there is a consultation procedure going on for the next strategy. We are looking to see how this can fit for all of Europe at a time of economic crisis. We know that strategies have to have clear outcomes, involve social planning, social partners in the planning, implementation and evaluation stages, and ensure that the labour inspectorates are engaged. I will stop here, but say we have a great deal more information. From our website at osha.europa.eu, we have information in 25 languages. And in Macedonia, we have our national focal point, the Macedonian Occupational Safety and Health Association. They work closely with us, and I can tell you that I know they have just translated 2 of our reports into Macedonian. One is on economic incentives for occupational safety and health, and the other one in integrating occupational safety and health into education. So information is out there, resources are out there. We need to start disseminating this and getting key actors involved. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.